Let's talk about the leading causes of death worldwide. One, you got heart disease coming in at approximately, according to this, 695,547 deaths per year. Next, you got cancer, 605,213 deaths per year. Next is a lie. Next, it says COVID at 416,893 deaths per year. But keep watching this video and you're going to see that's an error. That's a lie. And it's not unintentional. Next, you have accidents at 224,935 deaths per year. I don't know exactly what accidents refer to. Auto accidents, motorcycle accidents, falling off a ladder accidents, maybe all of those combined. I read somewhere. Never mind. No, I didn't. Next, you got stroke coming in at 162,890 deaths per year. But stroke is heart disease, as you'll see later in this video if you didn't already know that. Next, you have chronic lower respiratory diseases at 142,342 deaths per year. Alzheimer's disease. I didn't realize people died from Alzheimer's, but 119,399 deaths per year. Diabetes at 103,200, and blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Now, these are the supposed top 5 causes of death worldwide. And I don't know why it says top 5 because I'm counting much more than that. But if you look at this is pretty much the same. It's saying the same thing. So let's talk about heart disease. The most common type of heart disease, and I'm up at the top, in the United States is coronary artery disease, which affects the blood flow to the heart. Now I'm in the middle. What is defined as heart disease? It's a type of disease that affects the heart or blood vessels. Now I am at the bottom. There are 4 main types of heart disease: coronary heart disease, stroke. That's what I was saying just a few seconds ago, that stroke is a type of heart disease. Then you got peripheral arterial disease and aortic disease. So those are your 4 main types of heart disease, which suggests there are other types, but these are just the main ones. Leading risk factors for heart disease and stroke are high blood pressure, high low density lipoprotein or LDL cholesterol, diabetes, smoking and secondhand smoke exposure, obesity, unhealthy diet, and physical inactivity. Unhealthy diet should have been the first one, because I don't understand why these experts don't make the connection that unhealthy diet is the cause of high blood pressure and high low density lipoprotein and diabetes and smoking and even secondhand smoke exposure. Smoking is a part of your diet. If you smoke cigarettes or whatever, that's part of your diet. And if you hang in environments where and you don't smoke, but the people around you smoke and you're inhaling that smoke, it's part of your diet. So, what are the 10 worst foods for your heart? You got fast food burgers, and I underlined this because I found this interesting. That the science, according to this here, The science on whether saturated fats are truly linked to heart disease isn't entirely clear. So you're the only group of people that don't understand that saturated fats are linked to heart disease. Next is processed and cured meats. Then you got deep fried foods. Wait a minute. Deep fried food. Deep fried foods are fried in oils which are high in saturated fats. I'm not a genius. This shit is just common sense. Like, you see how contradictory that is? I don't understand these fucking people. But let's keep going. Candy. Why candy? Mostly because of the sugars in it. Soft drinks and sugar sweetened drinks. Sugary cereals. Cookies and pastries. Why cookies and pastries? Because of the sugar. And then you have margarine. I talk about sugar. I got a video on here about sugar. You should check that out. I talk about sugar a lot, and I'm not going to talk about it here. Let's move right along. If you skip to the bottom, which I feel like I've already proved that this bullshit of where they're talking about the science is unclear on whether saturated fats are linked to heart disease. To further add to that, looking at the bottom, about right, eating a diet high in saturated fats, trans fats, and cholesterol has been linked to heart disease and related conditions such as that. I don't even want to try to pronounce that. Also, too much salt, sodium in the diet can raise blood pressure. Not getting enough physical activity can also lead to heart disease. So the science is fucking clear that fats lead to heart disease. Fats contribute and cause heart disease. Think of it like this. In your home, say like if you eat fried foods, right? And I don't know, say you just fried some French fries, right? When you're done with that oil, you don't pour that oil down your sink drain because that oil will clog the pipes, decreasing the flow of water through the drain, causing your sink to drain slower and slower over time, and eventually it will back up. This is the same thing that goes on in your body when you consume all of these, vegetable oils, canola. It don't matter what type of oil it is. Like oil is oil, basically. There's some oils that are better than other oils, but they're all oils. They all do the same thing. They stick to your pipes. And eventually what happens is as your sink won't be able to drain due to the buildup caused by the oils. Your blood flow will become less and less or harder and harder, which will cause your heart to have to pump harder and harder and work harder and harder, and eventually they'll just shut down and no blood will get through. It's the same principle. It works the same way. I'm not even a fucking scientist. I literally spent $0 in research learning what I just told you. And that's just the way it works. I don't know. Like for me, it just seems like common sense to me. Like not to pour oil down your drains in your home. It's the same exact thing. Okay, so next is heart. I mean, not heart, but stroke, which is also a part of heart disease. But on the list, they categorized it separately as if it was something different. And That type of stroke is caused by a blockage cutting off the blood supply to the brain. I was just talking about that, right? Saturated fats, oils. That's just part, like a bigger contributor is sugar. But this is the most common type of stroke. A hemorrhagic stroke is caused by bleeding in or around the brain, and a transient attack, or TIA, is also known as a mini stroke. So those are your three types of strokes right there. 8 foods that can cause a stroke. Smoked meats. Smoked meats like bacon and ham can increase the risk of getting a stroke because these meats are full of sodium. Diet sodas, red meat. Now, diet sodas, I'm gonna tell you, diet sodas are on there because of the fucking artificial sweeteners in there. Then you got red meat, you got canned soups, packaged snacks, frozen meals, alcohol, and fried foods. Again, fried foods, the oils. So, what 3 foods do cardiologists say to avoid? I don't know why it says what 3 foods, because obviously that's more than 3 foods. Top foods cardiologists want you to avoid for a healthy heart is red meat, including the other white meat. That's pork, bacon, hot dogs, and other processed meats, French fries, and other fried foods, sugary drinks and cereals, potato chips and snack foods, full fat dairy products, baked goods, cookies, and pastries. So, just looking at this, you really see the connection. I mean, you see a connection with a lot of things, but I don't know. I just be stuck on sugar sometimes. So, you see sugar, baked goods, cookies, and pastries, sugar. Even full fat dairy products are full of sugar, and even fat free products have sugar. Potato chips and snack foods, sugar. Sugary drinks and cereals, sugar. It's fucking sugar and everything. I'm trying to stay off sugar though. Like, I really want to talk about it, but I got other videos where I talk about sugar. So now let's talk about cancer. I feel like I skipped something. But anyway, cancer is a disease caused when cells divide uncontrollably and spread into surrounding tissues. Cancer is caused by changes to DNA. Most cancer-causing DNA changes occur in sections of DNA called genes. These genes are also called genetic changes. There's a lot of fucking chemicals that are being put in foods, food additives that are linked to DNA changes and altering. But let's look right here. Cancer. What are the main causes of cancer according to this? Cigarette smoking and secondhand smoke exposure, exposure to sun and tanning beds. No, and pause. I don't agree with all this shit. Like, some of this shit is bullshit. I'm just posting information from what the so-called experts are saying. But just, I don't agree with all this shit. And I don't know. There's a lot to it. Moving on. Overweight and obesity, excessive alcohol use, and infectious disease. So the thing on here that, I don't know, and it might be different depending on your race, but exposure to the sun is healthy. And I know there's a lot of people out here that believe in sunscreen and won't go out in the sun without sunscreen. And I know that's real common with white people. And I don't know if it's because they don't have melanin like black people do. But from what I understand, The sun is healthy. I'm in the sun as much as I can possibly be with as few clothes on as possible with no sunscreen, no hat. I'm not trying to block. I'm trying to absorb all of the sun's rays as much as possible. So that's what made me say that I don't agree with all this and some of it's bullshit. Moving right along, nitrates and nitrites are chemicals used to preserve processed meats. Similar to that, nitrates and nitrites cause havoc in the body by forming cancer-causing chemicals. NOCs when we eat them. I don't know what NOCs are, didn't look it up, but nitrates and nitrites, it's in all your meats. All of them. Let's see. Are food dyes linked to cancer? Now, let me tell y'all this real quick. When I first looked up cancer, like they didn't talk about like food dyes. It's a lot of shit that they don't like in the initial research don't come out. Now you got to dig for some of this shit, right? And this is not by any means like an all exhaustive video. Like it doesn't cover 100% of everything. It's just, kind of get your feet wet. It's like, dipping your toes in the water a little bit, maybe ankles, maybe we're up to the knees, right? It's enough. This is some good information, and it's enough that if it applies to you, will arm you to make better choices concerning your health. Right? So, consuming too much food dye containing contaminants could pose a health risk. However, with the exception of red 3, remember that, with the exception of red 3, there is currently no convincing evidence that artificial food dyes cause cancer. A lot of information I notice too when I'm, making these videos, I'm researching whatever, putting information together to make these videos. A lot of this information is contradictory. Right? I've already like demonstrated that. Right? The same fucking post contradicted itself about heart disease and saturated fats, right? 1 second they're saying, well, there's no solid science proving saturated fats are linked. And then it mentions fried foods being linked to heart disease. And what the fuck are you? It's not talking about air fried foods. Like, what the fuck are you frying these foods in? Fucking saturated fats, oils. So a lot of, you gotta dig. You gotta dig. I mean, because I can, it's really interesting. Like I can show you videos. I mean, not videos, but I can show like research where it says, a certain food additive or chemical or whatever is bad for you. And then I can show you one that says it's good for you. So I just wanted to mention that. I just find it very interesting. And yeah, so let's move on. Just as I was talking about, look right here. Now up there, red 3. With the exception of red 3, there's currently no convincing evidence that artificial food dyes cause cancer. But then if you just come down to right here, is red dye 40 linked to cancer? Red dye 40 contains benzene, a known cancer-causing substance. So, I've been, studying this shit for a long time. And so, like, I kind of know how to dig. I know where to dig. I know some questions to ask. So, like, sometimes it's not just about asking questions, it's about asking the right questions. And to some degree, not claiming to be an expert or anything like that, but to some degree, I know the right questions to ask. Like I had to ask specifically about red dye 40 because I already knew that red dye 40 was linked to cancer. But it wasn't popping up. And as you see, Healthline is saying that there is currently no evidence that artificial food dyes cause cancer other than red 3. A factual list of cancer-causing foods and cancer-fighting. Cancer-causing foods: processed meat, red meat, alcohol, salted fish, sugary drinks, or non-diet soda. Fast food or processed foods, and I'm sure there's more. There's absolutely more. But I'm in the middle now. What foods increase risk for cancer? Processed meat includes bacon, ham, lunch meats, meat jerky, hot dogs, salami, and other cured meat products. Any amount of processed meat and more than around 18 ounces of fresh meat per week are most strongly linked with a higher risk of cancer. I would question that because I would say sugar. But we're not gonna argue over it. Now, right here, cancer fighting foods. And again, these are not all exhaustive lists. There's much more to it. Just enough to get your feet wet, get your toes wet, ankles, whatever. But the list is usually topped with berries, broccoli, tomatoes, walnuts, grapes, and other vegetables, fruits, and nuts. And there's more to that, but I didn't. But that's, what it really all comes down to. Like, it's not complicated. Like, when you start going down this rabbit hole and listening to what these so-called experts got to say, they complicate shit. It's really not complicated. They're fucking idiots. Because, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, it's just the truth. They're fucking idiots. They're stupid. They're fools. Respectfully. Because they ignore nature's ways. Like, the shit is not complicated. Human beings are frugivores. If we eat our species specific diet, then all this shit becomes irrelevant. The fucking saturated fats and the unnatural sugars and the red dyes and all the food dyes and all the artificial flavors and chemicals and drugs and preservatives and all the bullshit, it all becomes irrelevant if you just eat what you're supposed to eat. Your species specific diet. But it's when you get away from that, when you get away from nature, that all this bullshit like this becomes of concern. Because now you're eating what's unnatural. You're putting shit in your body that you're not supposed to put in your body, that your body wasn't meant or designed to process. So now you have all this science and research basically trying to find loopholes in nature's laws, and there are no fucking loopholes in nature's laws. Nature is what it is. It says what it says, and you either comply or you don't. You either follow nature's ways or you don't. If you follow nature's ways, you will be blessed. If you don't, you will be cursed. And I don't mean cursed like in a religious context. I just mean the consequences of your actions. Whatever you choose, that's all on you. Whatever you choose, it's all on you. But whatever you choose, there's consequences to your actions. And you will either enjoy the consequences or you will not enjoy the consequences. That's all it is to it. But it's really simple. Frugivores, you, as a frugivore, your diet is fruit. Majority fruit, primarily fruit. Then you can include nuts, you can include seeds, vegetables. It's just plants. Plant-based plants. I don't know if I like the word plant-based, but your food should come from plants. Period. All this other bullshit, your food should not come from a fucking laboratory. It should not come from a fucking dead animal. It's really simple. Like, the shit is not complicated. These motherfuckers make shit complicated. But it's really not complicated. Number 3. Now, on the list I showed you, on both of the lists I've showed you of the top causes of death worldwide, number 3 was COVID, coronavirus. I told you that was a lie. And it is. Because number 3, the number 3 cause of death, at least in the United States, is medical malpractice. 250,000. Now, this is a really interesting read. 250,000 Americans die each year due to some sort of medical error. But depending, this is where it gets funny to me. Depending on what is considered a medical mistake, that number could be as high as 440,000. Pause. Why do we trust these people with our health? They're fucking idiots. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're quacks. How is this called healthcare? This is not healthcare. Medical error is responsible, and I'm gonna go with the latter number of 440,000 deaths per year because I believe that's more accurate. See, when you start playing games talking about depending on what is considered a medical mistake, I don't buy that shit. We all like there's no like what's the difficulty in understanding what a medical mistake is? We're gonna get into it a little bit more, but I'm gonna go on with 440,000. Third leading cause of death in America is doctors. It's the medical industry. It's the hospitals. Most common causes of malpractice suits: misdiagnosis, childbirth injuries, failure to treat, medication errors, surgical errors, anesthesia errors, and defective medical equipment. So you go to the doctor, they give you a diagnosis, they tell you this is what's wrong with you, and then that's not even what's wrong with you. Man, I could spend a lot of time on this, just bashing this quackery. But let's move along. So now number 4, the real number 4. Let me point out too, you remember the list. I read 2 lists of top causes of death in the United States and supposedly worldwide. Did you notice that medical error was not on there at all? This is what I mean. Like, you just gotta, like, I've been doing this for a little while, so I kind of know to a degree what questions to ask because it wasn't even on the list. Even if you take the minimum number of 250,000 deaths per year, it should have been on the list. It wasn't even on the list. 440,000 deaths per year. You're talking about almost 500,000 people dying every year due to medical error, due to the quackery, due to fucking idiots not knowing what the fuck they're doing. And they didn't even put it on the list. That is not a mistake. Moving right along. COVID-19, coronavirus. I'm kind of hesitant to talk about this because I talked about this before and fucking videos were taken down and, flagged and all kind of shit. I don't know if it's the same, if they still on that same bullshit, but we about to find out. So the risk factors for COVID-19, what's interesting is these risk factors, which include close contact with someone who already has COVID-19, especially someone with symptoms, being coughed or sneezed on by an infected person, being near an infected person when in indoor space with poor airflow. Well, how did the first person get COVID-19? Where did the very first case of coronavirus comes from? Because according to this bullshit, this is saying that you have to be around someone with COVID to get COVID. That's it. You have to be around someone with it to get it. And they have to breathe on you or cough or sneeze on you or something like that for you to get it. But how did the very first person get it then? This gets interesting. Severe acute respiratory syndrome. That's the acronym for that is SARS Coronavirus. Now look at that first heading where it says patent. And there you have a fucking patent number. Now patents are for inventions. Simple as that. You get a patent when you invent something that you want to protect from other people stealing. You don't want other people to be able to duplicate your invention. You get a patent on it. Someone tries to steal your invention, you can sue them. According to this, coronavirus has a patent, which means somebody invented it. But wait, if you just drop down to the next one, you have inventor. This shows you the inventor of coronavirus. Now, help me out. I mean, unless I'm reading something wrong or misunderstanding, I mean, this seems pretty black and white to me. Now, here's a list of all the inventors of SARS or coronavirus. You can pause that if you want to read them names. And so, an assignee, I think I skipped something. But basically, let me go back. Did I? Oh, here. Okay, so under inventor, you got assignee, the Chiron Corporation. That's what I skipped. That's what I want to talk about because you see who it was assigned to. So what is an assignee? A person to whom a right or liability is legally transferred. So if we go back, here you have these list of inventors that invented coronavirus. They put a patent on it and then they assigned it to Chiron Corporation. Probably sold it. Whatever. But Chiron Corporation, according to this and how I understand it, owns the patent for coronavirus, therefore owns coronavirus. What's your thoughts on that one? So now let's talk about Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's, and I'm up at the top. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia, a general term for memory loss and other cognitive abilities serious enough to interfere with the daily life. Alzheimer's disease. Now I'm right here, right there, right there. What is the main cause of Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's disease is thought to be caused by the abnormal buildup of proteins in and around brain cells. Pause. When it says Alzheimer's disease is thought to be caused by, that means they don't know. That's just what they think. Okay. So, one of the proteins, now I've read about this a little bit, and aluminum is supposedly a main cause, a main factor in Alzheimer's and dementia. But according to this, one of the proteins involved is called amyloid, deposits of which form plaques around the brain cells. Other protein is called tau or tau, deposits of which form tangles within brain cells. So I looked at it, I still looked at it. I mean, this could be right, But what foods are high in amyloids? Complex carbohydrates, including pasta, cakes, white sugar. There go your sugar again. White rice and white bread causes spikes in insulin production and can contribute to the formation of toxic proteins associated with Alzheimer's. Microwave popcorn contains that, a chemical that may increase amyloid plaques in the brain. Now let's talk about diabetes. What is diabetes? Diabetes, I'm up at the top, is a chronic, long-lasting health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy. I like that definition. It was really simple. Now, if you come down here, what is a simple definition of diabetes? That definition wasn't that simple to me. But diabetes, the simple definition, is a chronic metabolic disease characterized by elevated levels of blood glucose or blood sugar, which leads over time to serious damage to the heart, blood vessels, eyes, kidneys, and nerves. Now, if you want to, these are foods to eliminate to reduce your chances of getting diabetes. So up at the top, you got sugary foods, which is no surprise. Sugar has been a culprit in everything that I've mentioned. Every disease that I've mentioned of the top causes of death in the world, or at least in the United States, sugar is involved in every single one of them in some way. I'm not here to talk about sugar though. I do have a video on sugar. You should check that. But sugary foods, foods to eliminate to reduce your chances of diabetes. Sugary foods, white rice, bread, and flour. Full fat dairy products. Again, that's sugar. Even in bread, there's sugar. There's sugar in dairy products. Fatty cuts of meat. Packaged snacks and baked goods, more sugar. Fried foods. And if you skip down to the bottom, these four food types increase your risk of type 2 diabetes: heavily processed carbohydrates, drinks sweetened with sugar, saturated and trans fats, and red meats and processed meats. And that is all for this video of the leading causes of death in America and possibly, potentially, according to this right here, worldwide. What are your thoughts on this?